Alright, so I just want to make a quick, hopefully less than a minute video to show off some of the heuristics that my friends and I have identified and how those lead into this idea of imposing different rhythms on the game or almost changing the rhythm of the game. So let's go to basic arena, even though there's a bunch of crazy arenas in this game. And as you can see, I've loaded up a couple different layouts. I also, since we're doing this video, want to call attention to a couple different things about this layout screen that I really like and that I really don't like. One, I really like, first off, just listen to the music. So vibey. And I think that those design elements, including like sound and visual aesthetic elements, are really useful for a screen where you're going to be spending as much or more time than the fight itself, right? So this needs to be an engaging loop of activities. So even little things like the sound effects as you select your item really drive home the fact that design and care went into designing this screen as much as the combat that follows. One thing I'll say that is kind of frustrating, or a question that I'll pose for us, how can we get around this? For a multiplayer mayhem game, there's got to be like, these 4 different divisions. That makes reading these items really kind of, this is not pleasant to read, right? The text overlay. So how do we solve that? Anyway, jumping into the game. Oh. There are certainly like mini game elements to this game, like mashing to break out of your cube. So I'll share one fact real quick. We were playing this in front of Emmy, our Games 101 section leader, and they pointed out that, at least initially, the flow of this game can feel a lot like tag almost, like professional tag. You're running around trying to get this shot on each other. So right now I'm using this gun called the Eagle gun, which is pretty basic on the ground, and when you jump in the air, it hesitates before firing, right? And it took a while to realize that if you pick a flying robot like this one, you can easily spam that quality and create a bunch of eagles that fly at the right? Just completely abuse that mechanic. Switching robots, there's guns that are really short, right? This barely reaches in front of my robot at all. But there's a robot that can teleport as it air dashes. So you can use that technology to zip in. If I can frickin' do it. Spam it and zip out. Going into the other robots, my best friend does this to me all the time and it's terrible. This is the fastest robot with the fastest legs. So to me, this kind of turns the game from, so it's kind of like a gun tag game, but if you do that really cheap tactic I did with the Eagle, it becomes like a bullet hell game. If you use that teleporting robot that I use, it becomes like a backstabby game. This guy actually kind of reminds me of the book Ender's Game, and this kind of like purely mechanical idea of thinking about, we're all points, right? It doesn't matter how much health this point has. It's just a point that doesn't want to get hit. So even this fastest robot becomes really competitively advantageous, even if it has really low health. Especially if you give it a gun like a sniper, which is like the essential hit and don't get hit gun, it can actually be very hard to counter this build, even though it's relatively simple. But just the fastest guy with the longest and fastest gun, boom, right? There's also, I'm not so familiar with this strategy, but this just to show how diverse the strategies are. I found this strategy out from the competitive scene. There's a bomb, so most bombs you throw and they do damage. There's a bomb which you explode underneath you, which actually doesn't damage you, and it makes you jump really high. And that's become meta-defining in its own way. Right? You can use that bomb and then jump off that and get really high and shoot these hornets. Like, yeah, you can become so high that it's literally impossible for any other object in the game, oops, I knocked myself down, to hit you. So there's just different, there's a lot of flexibility to the game.